It was a cool autumn evening, and the stadium buzzed with energy. Fans were chanting, waving their scarves, and the air was thick with excitement. Among the sea of faces, one stood out, a boy no older than 8, clutching a worn-out jersey with Lionel Messi's name on the back. His eyes sparkled with hope, the kind that only a child could have. He had traveled far, sneaking past the gates, only to stand face to face with the barrier between him and his hero, the towering security guards. "No," one of the guards said sternly. "You can't go any further. Turn back." The boy's lip trembled, but he refused to cry. "Please," he whispered, holding out the jersey. "It's for Messi." The guards, hardened by years of dealing with eager fans, remained unmoved. They waved him away, and with that, the boy's dreams seemed to shatter. He turned, head bowed, stepped slow, as if carrying the weight of the world on his small shoulders. But then something extraordinary happened. A murmur rippled through the crowd like a wave. The guards, the fans, everyone suddenly fell silent. Lionel Messi himself had stepped onto the field. His gaze locked on the boy, and with one motion, Messi raised his hand. The guards parted. Messi walked over, each step deliberate, as if crossing not just the distance, but the barrier between two worlds, one of untouchable greatness and one of childhood dreams. The boy stood frozen, unable to believe what was happening. Messi, the legend, the icon, was walking towards him. The crowd around them watched in awe, holding their breath. Messi knelt to meet the boy's wide eyes. "Is this for me?" he asked softly, pointing to the crumpled jersey. The boy could barely find his voice. "Yes," he whispered, holding it out with trembling hands. "I just wanted you to have it." Messi smiled, the kind of smile that melted all the fear away. "Thank you," he said, taking the jersey like it was the most precious gift he had ever received. But then, Messi did something no one expected. "Come with me," he said, taking the boy's hand. Gasps filled the stadium as Messi led the boy past the guards, past the sidelines, and onto the field. Cameras clicked furiously. Journalists scrambled for the story. But in that moment, it wasn't about the fame or the headlines. It was about one boy's courage being rewarded by an act of pure kindness. Messi turned to the boy again. "What's your name?" he asked. "Luca," the boy managed to say, tears glistening in his eyes. "Well, Luca," Messi said, "how about you stay by my side for the game?" The crowd erupted in cheers. Luca's eyes went wide with disbelief, his heart pounding like a drum. But just as the moment felt too good to be true, a sudden, harsh voice broke through the celebration. "Wait!" It was a furious official from the league, marching onto the field. "He can't be here. This is against the rules." The official's voice echoed through the stadium, sharp and cold. The crowd hushed, the excitement turning into nervous murmurs. Luca clutched Messi's hand tighter, his tiny fingers trembling. For a moment, it felt like the dream was about to slip away. Messi's eyes hardened, his usual calm replaced with quiet defiance. He turned to the official, standing tall and unwavering. "What rule am I breaking?" he asked, his voice steady but sharp. The official's face flushed. "This is a professional match. No unauthorized persons on the field. You know that." Messi took a deep breath, then spoke with measured calm. "And what if I say he's not just a fan? What if I say he's my guest?" The official stammered, caught off guard. "Why, you can't." "I just did," Messi interrupted, his tone unyielding. "Luca is staying." The crowd erupted in cheers again, this time louder, bolder. They chanted Messi's name in unison, their voices like thunder shaking the stadium. The official glanced nervously around, realizing the impossible task of silencing tens of thousands of passionate fans. But it wasn't over yet. The official narrowed his eyes. "Fine," he said with a sneer. "But if anything goes wrong, it's on you, Messi." Messi nodded, unbothered, and looked down at Luca. "Ready?" he asked with a smile, as if they were about to embark on the greatest adventure. Luca's face lit up, his fear forgotten. "Yes," he said, grinning from ear to ear. As Messi led him to the bench, the official stormed off in frustration. But even as victory seemed won, The game was about to begin, and with it, an unexpected twist no one could have predicted. The whistle blew, signaling the start of the match. But something strange was in the air. The opposing team's players exchanged glances, confusion flickering across their faces. Luka sat on the bench, feeling like he was part of something magical, yet a little afraid. He watched Messi jog onto the field, the same calm and focus in his stride. But the crowd noticed it first. Whispers turned into murmurs, then into gasps. The opposing captain had walked over to the referee, gesturing wildly. "They're asking for a substitution," one of the commentators said in disbelief. From the sidelines, Luka watched in amazement as not one but 3 key players on the opposing team were suddenly escorted off the field. An injury? No, it didn't seem like that. They were fine, confused, but fine. Then came the shocking announcement. "They've decided to forfeit." The commentator's voice boomed, incredulous. "The opposing team is walking off the pitch." "But why?" The crowd booed and hissed, unsure of what was happening. Messi, still standing in the center of the field, seemed calm, even thoughtful. He turned and jogged back to the bench, directly to Luka. He leaned in close, as if they were sharing a secret. "This is what happens when people forget why we play," Messi said quietly, his voice soft but firm. "Some people don't like when the game becomes about something bigger." Luka looked up at him, confused. "Because of me?" Messi shook his head. "No, because kindness scares people who only care about winning." He smiled gently. "But it doesn't scare us, does it?" Luka grinned. "No, it doesn't." At that moment, the referee blew the whistle again. "The match will continue as a friendly," he announced, his voice ringing with newfound authority. "The people deserve the game they came for." Messi turned back to the field, signaling to his teammates, who began to play. Not for trophies, not for pride, but for the love of the game. The game resumed with a different energy, no tension, no pressure, just pure joy. Every pass, every shot, every play felt lighter, freer. The players smiled, laughed, and even the fans sensed it. What had started as a competition had turned into something much more, a celebration of the sports spirit. Messi, with his usual grace, dribbled past defenders as though they were invisible, each movement more like a dance than a strategy. But this time, something unusual happened. He wasn't going for goal. Instead, he passed the ball towards the sidelines, towards Luka. The ball rolled to a stop just at Luka's feet. The stadium held its breath. Messi walked over, crouching to Luka's level. "Go on," he said, smiling. "Take a shot." Luka blinked, frozen for a second. "Me?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Yes," Messi replied. "Show them your courage." The boy's heart raced as he stepped onto the field. His legs felt wobbly, but Messi's encouragement steadied him. He lined up the ball, looked at the net, and kicked as hard as he could. The ball soared, not with the perfect precision of a pro, but with the determination of a dreamer. It arched high, almost missing, but then it brushed the crossbar and bounced into the net. Goal! The crowd erupted, cheering louder than they had for any goal that night. Luka's eyes lit up in disbelief, then pure joy. He spun around, arms stretched wide, and Messi lifted him up in celebration, carrying him like a champion. Tears welled in Luka's eyes. "I did it," he cried, his voice trembling with emotion. Messi beamed. "Yes, you did." The players clapped, the fans cheered, and in that moment, the entire world felt lighter. The game had been transformed, not by rules or trophies, but by courage, kindness, and the bravery of one little boy who dared to dream. As they stood there, basking in the moment, Messi whispered, "Never forget, you belong here, Luka. Always." As the crowd's cheers roared on, Messi set Luka down gently, and the boy felt like he was floating. He had scored a goal in front of thousands, cheered on by the greatest player in the world. But just as the moment seemed perfect, a new twist unfolded. A familiar voice called from the stands, strained and desperate. "Luka! Luka!" Luka spun around, eyes wide with surprise. There, at the edge of the stands, stood a woman, his mother, her face pale with worry, clutching the railing. Her voice trembled as she called again, "Luca, come back, please." Luca's joy faltered. His heart clenched with guilt. He hadn't told her he would sneak into the stadium, hoping against hope that he could get close to Messi. He thought she would be angry, but instead, he saw relief mixed with tears in her eyes. She wasn't mad. She was afraid. Messi saw it too. He walked over, kneeling beside Luca. "Is that your mom?" he asked gently. Luca nodded, biting his lip. "I didn't mean to make her worry," he said softly. "I just wanted to see you." Messi placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Then let's make it right." He took Luca by the hand and led him to the edge of the field. The guards who had once blocked Luca's way now stepped aside without hesitation, and Messi waved for the mother to come down. She hurried to meet them, her steps shaky, tears streaming down her face. When she reached Luca, she pulled him into a tight hug, trembling. "You scared me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But I'm so proud of you." Messi watched, smiling warmly, then turned to the mother. "He's brave," he said quietly. "More than most people." The mother looked up at Messi, gratitude and awe in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for everything." Messi simply nodded. He deserved it. Then, as the crowd began chanting Luca's name, Messi knelt once more, eye level with the boy. "Remember," he said, "the goal you scored today. It was because you were brave. Never stop being brave." Luca wiped his eyes, grinning through his tears. "I won't." And with that, Messi ruffled his hair, stepping back onto the field, leaving Luca in the arms of his mother, both of them forever changed by a moment that transcended the game. The boy who was once turned away had become a symbol of courage, thanks to the kindness of a legend. As Messi returned to the field, the game flowed on, but something profound lingered in the air. It wasn't just a match anymore. It had become a testament to dreams, bravery, and kindness. Luca and his mother remained on the sidelines, watching in awe, but there was still more to come. A final twist neither of them could have expected. During a break in play, the stadium announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special announcement." The crowd quieted, curious. Luca's heart skipped, wondering what could be next. "Tonight, we witnessed something remarkable," the announcer continued. "A young boy's courage reminded us why we love this game. To honor that courage, the club has decided to make Luca an honorary mascot for the rest of the season." The stadium erupted again, louder than ever, as Luca's name echoed through the stands. His eyes widened in shock, and he looked up at his mother, who nodded through her tears, smiling with pride. Messi approached again, holding something in his hand, a fresh, official jersey with Luca's name printed on the back and Messi's signature emblazoned on it. He handed it to the boy, who could only stare in awe. "You're part of the team now," Messi said, his voice warm. Luca slipped the jersey on, the fabric heavy with meaning. He stood taller, feeling stronger, braver. The crowd chanted his name, the players smiled at him, and in that moment, he wasn't just a boy with a dream. He was part of something bigger, a symbol of hope. As the final whistle blew and the game ended, Luca knew one thing for certain. His life had changed forever. Luca's journey didn't end on that magical night in the stadium. It was only the beginning. Inspired by Messi's kindness and his own unforgettable moment on the field, Luca made a bold decision. He would become a great footballer, just like his hero. The very next day, he approached his mother with determination in his eyes. "I want to play football, Mama," he said. "For real." His mother knelt beside him, brushing a hand through his hair. "Are you sure?" she asked gently. "It won't be easy." Luca nodded firmly. "I'm sure. Messi told me to be brave." That settled it. His mother enrolled him in a local football academy, a modest place where the grass wasn't perfect and the balls were a little scuffed. But none of that mattered to Luca. All he cared about was chasing his dream. The first training session. On the first day, Luca was nervous. The other kids were taller, faster, and had been playing for years. His coach, a gruff man with a soft heart, called everyone together. "All right, listen up," the coach barked. "We've got a new player today. Luca, come up here." Luca shuffled forward, his heart racing. The other kids eyed him, some curious, others indifferent. "Tell us why you're here," the coach said, arms crossed. Luka swallowed hard. I want to be like Messi," he said quietly, then louder. "I want to be brave." There was a brief silence. Then the coach gave a nod, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "All right, kid. Show us what you've got." Luka tried hard that day. He ran until his legs burned, chased the ball with every ounce of energy he had, and even though he stumbled more than once, he never gave up. By the end, he was exhausted but happy. As the sun set and training ended, the coach called him aside. "You've got heart, Luka," he said. "But heart isn't enough. You'll need to work harder than anyone else. You ready for that?" Luka's answer was instant. Yes. And so began his journey. A journey of early mornings, scraped knees, and endless practice. He wasn't the best yet, but every time he felt like quitting, he remembered Messi's words, "Never stop being brave." The grind begins. The weeks that followed were the toughest of Luka's young life. Each day started before dawn, with the sound of his alarm pulling him out of bed. The world outside was still dark as he laced up his cleats, the chill biting at his skin. But he never hesitated. He was driven by something bigger than exhaustion, a dream. At the academy, the training was grueling. "Faster, Luka," the coach bellowed during sprints. "Keep your head up," he shouted as Luka dribbled the ball through cones. "You've got to want it more than anyone else," he reminded him during endless shooting drills. Luka stumbled, fell, and failed more times than he could count. His shots missed, his passes went astray, and the older kids often outplayed him. But every time he hit the ground, he got back up. Every single time. The turning point. One day, during a particularly tough practice, Luka was struggling to keep up. His legs felt like lead, and every breath burned in his chest. He missed a pass, and one of the older boys scoffed. "Why are you even here, kid?" The boy sneered. "You'll never be like Messi." Luka's face flushed with embarrassment, but he didn't cry. He clenched his fists, hearing Messi's voice in his mind. "Be brave." The coach had seen everything. He blew the whistle sharply, calling a stop to the practice. "All right, everyone, gather around," he commanded. The players formed a loose circle around him, curious. "You all think being a footballer is just about talent?" the coach asked, pacing slowly. "Talent helps, sure, but talent without heart is useless." He pointed to Luka. "This kid, he's got heart. He's here every morning before the rest of you, and he stays after you've gone home. So if any of you think he doesn't belong here, you're wrong." The older boy shuffled uncomfortably, and the others looked at Luka with newfound respect. Luka stood straighter, feeling something he hadn't felt before, pride. The first goal. A few days later, during a practice match, Luka got his chance. He was on the field, running as fast as his legs could carry him. A teammate passed the ball, and it rolled perfectly into his path. This was his moment. He planted his foot, swung his leg, and struck the ball cleanly. It soared past the goalkeeper and into the net. Goal. For a second, there was silence. Then the coach clapped, a slow, deliberate sound that echoed across the field. "Now that," he said, "is how you make a statement." Luka couldn't stop smiling. He had done it. Not because he was the best, but because he never gave up. With that goal, Luka's confidence began to grow. He wasn't just the boy who had scored out of luck. He was starting to believe in himself. The other kids at the academy started treating him differently, not with mockery, but with a quiet respect. They saw how hard he worked. They saw the heart he put into every drill, every game. But it wasn't always smooth. There were still days when Luka felt like he was falling behind, when the drill seemed impossible, and when the pressure of improving felt too heavy. One afternoon, after a particularly tough practice, Luka sat alone by the sidelines, staring at the empty field. His body was sore. His head was spinning from all the new techniques he was trying to learn, and the doubt started to creep back in. "What if I'm not good enough?" he whispered to himself. "What if I can't do this?" Just then, the coach approached, his footsteps heavy on the grass. "Luka," he called softly, sitting down beside him. Luka didn't look up, but the coach continued. I know it feels tough. But let me tell you something. There's no one else here with your heart. Messi didn't get to where he is by being the best from the start. He got there because he never quit. And you're doing the same." Luka turned to face him, confusion in his eyes. "But what if it's not enough?" The coach smiled. "It's enough. You are enough. You'll get there. But only if you keep pushing, one step at a time. A new challenge." Months went by, and Luka's training continued. Then the academy announced something that sent a jolt of excitement and nervousness through Luka's heart. The local team was hosting a youth tournament, and every player in the academy would have a chance to be selected to represent them. The tryouts were brutal. There were scouts from bigger clubs watching, players from all over the region, showing off their skills. The pressure was intense. Luka felt the weight of it all as he stepped onto the field for the final day of tryouts. His palms were sweaty, his heart racing. His friends cheered for him from the sidelines, but in that moment, it felt like he was all alone. The match started, and Luka gave it his all. Every time he made a mistake, he shook it off and kept going. He passed the ball, sprinted for every opportunity, and when the time came to take a shot, he didn't hesitate. The ball sailed through the air and hit the back of the net. Goal! The crowd cheered, but this time, it wasn't just for the goal. It was for everything Luka had fought through to get there. After the match, the coach walked up to Luka, his face unreadable. The silence hung heavy in the air. Then, finally, the coach smiled. "Luka," he said, "you've earned a spot on the team. You've got the heart. Now let's see where it can take you." Luka's heart soared. This was the first step toward his dream. But as the coach walked away, Luka turned to look at the stands, where his mother stood, tears of pride in her eyes. He waved to her, knowing this wasn't just his victory. It was theirs. The next chapter. With his place on the team secured, Luka felt more determined than ever. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, and there would be more challenges, more failures, more moments when he would doubt himself. But he now knew that as long as he kept going, no matter what, he would be one step closer to becoming the footballer he had always dreamed of being. And one day, just maybe, he would be standing in Messi's shoes, inspiring a new generation of dreamers with his own story of bravery, perseverance, and heart. Luka's life had changed forever. The small boy who once stood on the sidelines of the grand stadium, dreaming of greatness, was now taking the first steps on his own football journey. Every day at the academy and on the youth team, he pushed harder. He woke up early, trained tirelessly, and put everything he had into becoming better. But it wasn't just the physical training that shaped Luka. It was his mental toughness. He learned to deal with setbacks, the days when his shots missed, the games when he was benched, the moments when he doubted himself. He learned to embrace failure, knowing that every mistake was a lesson. One day, after a tough loss in a local match, Luka sat on the grass alone, feeling the weight of disappointment pressing down on him. The coach had pulled him aside earlier, explaining that he hadn't played his best. "You've got the potential, Luka," he said, "but you're not playing like you believe in yourself." Luka clenched his fists. He did believe in himself, at least he wanted to. But how could he show it? The turning point. That night, Luka sat by his window, gazing at the stars. He thought back to the moment when he'd first stepped onto the field, when Messi had smiled and told him to be brave. What would Messi do now, if he was in Luka's shoes? Suddenly, the answer came to him. "I'll be brave," Luka whispered, his voice steady with resolve. He wasn't just going to try harder. He was going to take control of his own destiny. He would push past fear, stop holding back, and play with everything he had. The next game arrived, and Luka felt a new energy in his veins. The moment the whistle blew, he stepped onto the field with a different mindset. He was no longer just a player. He was a warrior, ready to take on the world. Every pass he made was calculated. Every dribble was daring. And when he had the ball in front of the goal, with the keeper charging toward him, Luka didn't hesitate. He saw the net, the ball, and his own future all in that one instant. He took the shot, and it was perfect. The ball zipped past the goalkeeper, striking the back of the net with a resounding thud. Goal. This time, the crowd didn't just cheer, they erupted. Luka had just scored a goal that would go down as one of his greatest moments. But more than the goal, it was the confidence, the courage, and the belief he had finally found in himself that mattered most. The call-up. The next day, as Luka was leaving the practice field, his coach called him over. "Luka," he said, "we've been getting a lot of interest. Some scouts from the national team are coming to watch the next match." Luka's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the chance he had been waiting for. As the national team scouts watched him during the match, Luka played like he had nothing to lose. Every pass, every shot, every move was made with purpose. He didn't play safe anymore. He played with everything he had. The crowd noticed. The coaches noticed. And by the end of the match, Luka knew that his hard work had paid off. A few days later, he received the call. "Luka," the coach's voice was filled with excitement, "you've been selected for the national under-18 team." Luka's mind raced. It felt like a dream. He had done it. He was on his way to becoming the footballer he always dreamed of. The moment of truth. The day came when Luka finally stood in front of a full stadium, wearing the national team jersey for the first time. He was no longer that boy standing by the sidelines. He was a part of something bigger. As he stepped onto the pitch for the first time as a national team player, he took a deep breath. His eyes scanned the field, the bright lights shining down, and the crowd's roar filling his ears. He glanced at the bench there in the front row. Was his mother, beaming with pride. And there, on the other side of the field, was Messi, his hero, the man who had inspired him, the man who had shown him what true greatness looked like. The match began, and Luka played with all the courage and heart he had gathered over the years. Every move felt like a piece of his childhood dream coming true. And when the ball landed at his feet in front of the goal, with the national team needing one final strike to win the match, Luka didn't hesitate. He took the shot. Goal. The crowd exploded in joy, and Luka's teammates swarmed him. But in that moment, he didn't just feel the rush of victory. He felt something even bigger. He had done it. And in doing so, he had become the symbol of the journey he had been on. The journey from a small boy dreaming on the sidelines to a player making his own mark on the world. And as he stood there, in the center of the field, Luka knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges, more dreams to chase, and more moments to prove that with heart, bravery, and never giving up, anything was possible.